The spaceship landed softly on the surface of a distant planet. The crew of explorers looked out of the large windows, their eyes wide with excitement and fear. This planet was unlike anything they had seen before. It had strange trees with bright colors, and towering mountains that touched the sky. The air was fresh, and the ground was covered in soft green grass. They had come to find new life, and the thrill of discovery filled the air. Among the crew was a young soldier named Alex. He was brave and curious, always looking for adventure. As the team prepared to step outside, Alex felt a rush of excitement. The captain, a stern woman named Commander Harris, gathered everyone together. She reminded them to stay alert and stick to the plan. They were here to explore, but they also needed to be cautious. Rumors of an 8-foot-tall alien giant named Gorak filled their minds. As they stepped out of the spaceship, the crew was amazed. Bright flowers bloomed everywhere, and strange sounds filled the air. Alex felt a sense of wonder wash over him. He wanted to learn everything about this new world. However, some of the crew were nervous. They whispered about the giant they had heard about and wondered if he would be dangerous. "Stay close, everyone," Commander Harris said firmly. "We don't know what we might encounter." As they walked further into the forest, they came to a clearing. Suddenly, they heard a loud roar. The ground shook, and everyone froze. Alex's heart raced as he looked around. The trees parted, and there stood Gorak. He was massive, with skin that glimmered like metal in the sunlight. His eyes were fierce, and he had sharp teeth that showed when he roared. The crew gasped in shock and fear. "Stay calm," Alex whispered, trying to reassure his teammates. But fear gripped everyone as Gorak approached. He towered over them, and his presence was intimidating. Some crew members backed away, ready to flee. But Alex stood his ground. He believed there was more to Gorak than met the eye. Gorak looked down at the humans with curiosity. He had seen many creatures in his life, but these small beings were new to him. He took a step closer, and the ground shook under his weight. The crew exchanged worried glances, unsure of what to do. Alex took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Hello," he called out, trying to sound confident. "We mean no harm." His voice trembled slightly, but he was determined to show courage. Gorak tilted his head, confused by the humans' words. He did not understand their language, but he sensed fear in their hearts. Instead of attacking, he took another step closer, his huge hands clenched into fists. The tension in the air was thick. Just then, a loud noise interrupted the moment. Another group of aliens appeared from the trees. They were smaller than Gorak, but equally fierce. They shouted in a language the humans could not understand. Gorak turned, and his expression changed. He looked angry, ready to defend his territory. The crew watched in horror as the new aliens advanced. Commander Harris quickly signaled for everyone to move back. "Get to the ship," she ordered. The crew scrambled, panic setting in. But Alex felt something different. He saw the anger in Gorak's eyes and knew he could not leave him behind. "Wait," Alex shouted, running toward Gorak. He had to try. "We can help." The giant looked at him, surprised by the human's bravery. Alex stood tall, trying to show he was not afraid. Gorak hesitated for a moment, considering the strange creature before him. Just as the other aliens charged, Alex lunged forward and shouted, "Let's fight together." In that instant, Gorak made a choice. Instead of turning on the humans, he joined Alex, ready to defend against the new threat. The crew watched in awe as the unlikely duo faced the incoming aliens. The battle that followed was intense. Gorak fought with strength and power, while Alex used his quick thinking to dodge and attack. They moved in sync, an unexpected team united against a common enemy. The crew, realizing what was happening, quickly joined in, inspired by Alex's bravery. Together, they managed to push back the attacking aliens. The team fought side by side with Gorak, and slowly they began to win the battle. When it was over, The crew was breathless. Gorak stood tall, looking down at Alex with a new sense of respect. He had seen the humans' bravery and determination. Alex smiled, feeling a spark of hope. The first encounter had been wild and unpredictable, but it had also opened a door. Gorak was no longer just a giant alien. He was now a potential ally. The humans had discovered something incredible in this strange new world. As the dust settled, Alex felt a strong connection with Gorak. They were different, but maybe, just maybe, they could become friends. A brave act. After the battle, the air was thick with tension and uncertainty. Alex and Gorak stood side by side, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. The crew was buzzing with excitement, but fear still lingered. They had just fought alongside a giant alien, something they had never imagined doing. Commander Harris gathered everyone together. "Great job, team," she said, her voice steady. "But we can't let our guard down. We don't know if that was the last of the enemy." The crew nodded, still feeling the adrenaline from the fight. But Alex felt something different. He felt a bond forming between him and Gorak. As the team set up camp for the night, Alex approached Gorak. "You fought bravely today," he said, trying to convey his respect. Gorak looked down at him, his expression serious. "You too, small one," he replied in broken English, struggling to find the right words. Alex smiled, happy to hear Gorak try to speak. "We should train together," he suggested. "If we're going to work as a team, we need to be ready for anything." Gorak nodded, understanding the importance of preparation. The next morning, Alex and Gorak began their training. They practiced fighting techniques and ways to communicate better. Alex taught Gorak simple commands while Gorak showed Alex how to harness his strength. The crew watched, amazed at their growing friendship. Days passed, and the bond between Alex and Gorak deepened. They shared stories of their worlds. Alex talked about Earth, its cultures, and its people. Gorak spoke of his home, a place filled with towering mountains and vast oceans. The more they learned about each other, the more they realized they were not so different after all. One evening, while they sat around the campfire, Gorak shared a legend from his planet. "Long ago, my people fought against great darkness," he began. "A giant came to save us, just like I try to save my world now." Alex listened intently, feeling inspired. "You are that giant," he said. "And together, we can be heroes." But their peaceful moments were soon interrupted. One night, as they were resting, loud noises echoed through the forest. The enemy aliens had returned, and this time they were ready for a fight. Commander Harris quickly woke everyone up, panic spreading among the crew. "We need to defend ourselves," she shouted. Alex's heart raced. He looked at Gorak, who was already standing tall, ready for battle. "Let's go," Alex yelled, determination in his voice. The two rushed into action, and the crew followed closely behind. As they prepared for the fight, Alex realized the enemy was much larger in number. Fear crept back into his mind. "We need a plan," he shouted over the noise. Gorak nodded, his eyes scanning the battlefield. "We fight together," he declared. Alex felt encouraged by Gorak's words. They could do this. The enemy charged at them, and the battle began. Gorak swung his massive fists, taking down several attackers. Alex darted around, using his agility to outmaneuver the enemies. He dodged their attacks, striking back when he saw openings. The crew fought bravely alongside them, but the enemy was relentless. Suddenly, Alex spotted a group of enemies trying to flank them. "Gorak," he shouted, "we need to stop them." Without hesitation, Gorak charged toward the group. Alex followed closely, his heart pounding. As they reached the attackers, Gorak used his sheer size to push them back. Alex jumped in, landing a few well-placed hits. But just as they seemed to gain the upper hand, one of the enemies targeted Alex. A large alien swung a weapon toward him, and time seemed to slow. Alex realized he was in trouble. He had no time to react. Just then, Gorak, who was nearby, saw what was happening. In a split second, Gorak lunged forward. He reached Alex just in time, blocking the attack with his own body. The impact knocked Gorak back, but he protected Alex from harm. "No!" Alex yelled, feeling a surge of panic. Gorak grunted in pain but stood his ground. "Keep fighting," Gorak urged, his voice strong despite the hit. Alex felt a wave of gratitude and determination wash over him. He couldn't let Gorak's bravery be in vain. With renewed strength, Alex charged into battle, fighting fiercely to protect his friend. The crew rallied around them, inspired by the duo's bravery. They fought with everything they had, pushing back the enemy with a mix of strategy and strength. Together, they formed a united front, using teamwork to outsmart their opponents. After what felt like an eternity, the tide of battle began to shift. The enemy, realizing they were outmatched, started to retreat. Alex and Gorak stood tall, a symbol of strength and bravery. The crew cheered, their spirits lifted by the victory. As the dust settled, Alex turned to Gorak, who was catching his breath. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "You saved my life." Gorak nodded, his eyes reflecting pride. "We fight as one," he replied. In that moment, Alex knew their bond was unbreakable. They had faced danger together and emerged stronger. This was only the beginning of their journey, and together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Finding common ground. The sun rose over the distant planet, casting a warm glow on the camp where Alex and Gorak had formed an unlikely friendship. After their intense battle against the enemy aliens, the crew had begun to feel a sense of unity. However, Alex knew that more work was needed to build trust between humans and Gorak's people. They had to understand each other better to stand strong together. One morning, as the crew gathered for breakfast, Alex had an idea. "Gorak," he said, "why don't we spend some time learning about each other's cultures? If we can understand where we come from, maybe we can become even better friends." Gorak looked thoughtful. "Yes," he replied slowly. "Understanding is important." The crew agreed, excited about the plan. They decided to set aside time each day for cultural exchange. Gorak would teach them about his planet, and Alex would share stories about Earth. They set up a large circle outside their camp, a perfect spot for learning. On the first day, Gorak began by showing the crew how to make a traditional meal from his home planet. He gathered strange fruits and vegetables from the nearby forest, explaining each one as he went. "This fruit gives strength," he said, holding up a bright red orb. "It is called Vorn. It is sweet and helps my people feel powerful." The crew watched in awe as Gorak skillfully prepared the dish. Alex helped him, eager to learn. He marveled at Gorak's large hands moving deftly through the ingredients. They cooked together, laughter filling the air as the crew shared stories and joked. Soon, the meal was ready, and they all gathered to taste Gorak's creation. As they ate, the flavors exploded in their mouths. "This is amazing," Alex exclaimed. The others nodded in agreement, smiles spreading across their faces. They could see how passionate Gorak was about his food and culture. It was a moment of connection, breaking down barriers between them. After the meal, it was Alex's turn to share about Earth. "Let me tell you about a celebration we have called Thanksgiving," he began. He explained how families come together to share a big meal and give thanks for what they have. He described the food, the traditions, and how important family and friends are during this time. Gorak listened closely, his eyes wide with interest. "You eat together?" he asked, curious. "Yes," Alex replied, feeling excited. "It's a time for sharing stories and showing gratitude. We believe that coming together strengthens our bonds." Over the next few days, the crew continued their cultural exchanges. Gorak taught them about his people's customs, including how they honored their ancestors through stories and songs. He shared legends of great heroes and battles fought long ago. Alex and the crew were fascinated. They felt a deeper connection to Gorak and his culture, realizing how rich and meaningful it was. In return, Alex introduced Gorak to music from Earth. He played a few songs on a small device, and Gorak listened in awe. "This is beautiful," he said, tapping his foot to the rhythm. Alex smiled, feeling proud to share something from his world. They even tried to create their own music together, combining Gorak's deep voice with Alex's guitar. It was a unique blend, filled with laughter and creativity. As they continued to learn from each other, Alex noticed that the fear and tension that once existed between the crew and Gorak were fading away. They were becoming more than just allies. They were friends. They laughed together, shared meals, and enjoyed each other's company. One evening, as they sat around the fire, Gorak spoke up. "I never thought I could be friends with a human," he admitted, "but you have shown me kindness and courage." Alex felt a swell of pride. "And you've taught us that strength comes in many forms," he replied. Just then, a rustle in the bushes caught their attention. The crew instantly tensed, ready for another fight. But Gorak raised his hand. "Wait," he said, listening closely. Slowly, a small alien creature emerged. It was no bigger than a dog, with bright blue fur and big, curious eyes. The crew relaxed, and Gorak knelt down to greet the creature. "This is a Flory," he explained, smiling. "They are gentle and help us find food." The little creature approached Gorak, nuzzling against him. The crew watched in wonder, realizing that Gorak was not just a fierce warrior, but also someone capable of love and care. Inspired, Alex decided to show Gorak a new game. "Let's play catch," he said, grabbing a ball from their supplies. He tossed it to Gorak, who caught it with ease. The crew joined in, laughter filling the air as they played. Gorak threw the ball high into the sky, and Alex leaped to catch it. In that moment, they were not just a human and an alien. They were friends, united by their shared experiences and laughter. They had found common ground, proving that differences could bring people closer together. As the sun set, painting the sky with colors, Alex and Gorak sat side by side, watching the stars begin to twinkle. "I am glad we are friends," Gorak said quietly. Alex nodded, feeling grateful for the bond they had formed. Together, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, stronger as allies and friends. A dangerous challenge. As the days passed, the bond between Alex and Gorak grew stronger. They had become a formidable team, earning the respect of the crew. But beneath their newfound friendship lay a growing sense of danger. Rumors spread that the enemy aliens were planning another attack, one that could be more dangerous than before. One morning, as the sun rose over the distant planet, Commander Harris called an emergency meeting. The crew gathered around, their faces serious. "We've received word that the enemy is regrouping," she announced. "They are planning a major assault on our camp, and we must prepare ourselves." Fear swept through the crew, and Alex felt his heart race. He glanced at Gorak, who stood tall and steady. "We have to come up with a plan," Alex said, trying to rally everyone's spirits. "If we work together, we can stop them." Gorak nodded in agreement. "We are strong as one, but we must be smart," he added. The crew listened closely, inspired by the strength of their alliance. They spent the day strategizing, deciding how to defend their camp against the impending attack. As night fell, they set up barriers and traps around their camp. Gorak used his incredible strength to move large rocks and create walls. Alex helped by setting up lookouts and preparing the crew for the fight ahead. They felt a mix of excitement and fear, knowing that the battle could be intense. The night passed slowly with everyone on edge. As dawn broke, the crew took their positions, waiting for the enemy to arrive. The atmosphere was tense. Alex felt his heart pounding in his chest. He and Gorak stood together, ready to face whatever came their way. Suddenly, Loud shouts echoed through the forest. The enemy had arrived, and they were more prepared than ever. A wave of fear rushed through the crew, but Alex pushed it aside. "Stay strong," he shouted, trying to keep everyone focused. The enemy charged toward them, a sea of angry faces and weapons raised high. Alex felt a rush of adrenaline. He stood at the front, Gorak by his side. "We will not back down," he yelled, his voice carrying over the noise. The battle began in an instant. Gorak charged forward, his massive frame pushing through the enemy lines. He swung his fists, taking down attackers left and right. Alex followed closely, using his agility to dodge and strike at the enemies. They fought together, a perfect combination of strength and speed. But as the battle raged on, Alex noticed that the enemy was stronger than before. They seemed more organized and determined. He could see that they had brought reinforcements, and their numbers were overwhelming. The crew was holding their ground, but it was clear they were in trouble. "Gorak," Alex shouted, trying to keep his voice steady. "We need to split them up. If we can divide their forces, we might stand a chance." Gorak nodded, understanding the urgency. They quickly devised a plan, using their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. "Follow me," Alex yelled to the crew, leading them toward a narrow path between two large rocks. Gorak charged ahead, drawing the enemy's attention while the crew slipped through the gap. They hoped to ambush the attackers from behind. As they moved into position, Alex could feel his heart racing. He glanced back at Gorak, who was now surrounded by enemies. "Stay strong, my friend," Alex shouted, hoping Gorak could hear him over the noise. With their plan in place, Alex and the crew sprang into action. They launched their surprise attack, catching the enemy off guard. The crew fought fiercely, their teamwork shining through. Gorak, seeing the distraction, took advantage of the chaos to break free and join them. But just as they seemed to gain the upper hand, a loud roar pierced the air. A massive alien warrior, larger than any they had faced before, stepped forward. He was covered in armor and brandished a gigantic weapon. Fear shot through the crew as they realized they were facing their toughest opponent yet. "This is it," Alex shouted, trying to rally everyone. "We can do this. We've come too far to give up now." The crew nodded, their determination rekindled. They knew they had to fight together to defeat this new threat. Gorak stepped forward, his expression fierce. "I will take him on," he declared, and the crew watched in awe. With a powerful roar, Gorak charged at the giant warrior. The ground shook beneath his feet as he closed the distance. The two titans clashed in a fierce battle. Gorak swung his fists, trying to land a hit, but the warrior was quick. He dodged and countered, swinging his weapon toward Gorak. Alex felt a surge of fear as he watched, but he knew he couldn't hesitate. "Gorak, I'm coming," Alex shouted, rushing to join his friend. He grabbed a nearby weapon, a simple but sturdy club, and charged into the fray. As Gorak fought the giant warrior, Alex aimed for the warrior's legs, hoping to bring him down. The battle raged on, each moment filled with danger and excitement. Gorak was strong, but the enemy warrior was relentless. Just when it seemed like they might lose, Gorak roared with determination and found an opening. With one powerful swing, he knocked the giant warrior off balance. Taking advantage of the moment, Alex rushed in. "Now, Gorak," he shouted. Together, they fought with everything they had, their combined strength and courage pushing them to victory. With a final blow, the enemy warrior fell to the ground, defeated. The crew erupted in cheers, their spirits lifted by the triumph. They had faced great danger and emerged victorious, but they knew they couldn't let their guard down. As they caught their breath, Alex turned to Gorak, his heart full of gratitude. "We did it," he exclaimed. Gorak nodded, his chest heaving with exhaustion. "We are strong together," he replied, a smile breaking across his face. With the enemy driven back, Alex and Gorak knew their journey was far from over. They had faced a dangerous challenge and proven their strength, but the bonds they had formed would guide them through whatever lay ahead, united as allies and friends. Unexpected betrayal. After their hard-fought victory against the enemy warrior, Alex and Gorak felt a renewed sense of hope. The crew celebrated their triumph, sharing stories of bravery and teamwork. Laughter filled the camp as they feasted together, grateful for their survival. But beneath the joy, a shadow lingered, a sense that not everything was as it seemed. As the night wore on, Commander Harris gathered everyone around the fire. "We did well today," she said, her voice firm. "But we must stay vigilant. The enemy will not give up easily. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." The crew nodded, understanding the seriousness of her words. Alex glanced at Gorak, who was busy helping the others prepare food. The giant alien had become a vital part of their team, and Alex felt proud to stand beside him. But deep down, he sensed that not everyone in the crew felt the same way. Some members still looked at Gorak with suspicion, unsure about trusting an alien. The following day, they resumed their training and preparation. Alex and Gorak worked closely, honing their skills and strategizing for the future. However, as they trained, Alex noticed one crew member, a soldier named Ryan, watching them closely. There was something about Ryan's gaze that made Alex uneasy. "Why is he staring at us?" Alex asked Gorak, nodding toward Ryan. Gorak glanced over, his expression thoughtful. "I do not know," he replied, "but I sense tension. We must be careful." That evening, Alex overheard a conversation between Ryan and a few other crew members. They were speaking in hushed tones, their faces serious. Alex strained to hear their words. "We can't trust him," Ryan was saying. "He's an alien. What if he betrays us when we least expect it?" Alex's heart sank. He wanted to confront Ryan, but he knew it would only create more tension. Instead, he decided to keep an eye on the situation, hoping it would resolve itself. The next day, the crew was working on reinforcing the camp when an urgent message came through on their communication device. "We've spotted enemy scouts nearby." Commander Harris shouted, "We need to prepare for an attack." The crew sprang into action, gathering weapons and fortifying their defenses. Alex felt a surge of adrenaline as he and Gorak readied themselves for the fight. They had faced danger before, and this time would be no different. As the enemy scouts approached, tension filled the air. The crew positioned themselves strategically, ready to defend their camp. Alex stood next to Gorak, their determination clear. "We can do this," Alex shouted, his voice ringing with confidence. Just as the enemy drew near, Ryan stepped forward. "Wait," he yelled, raising his hand. "I have a plan." The crew paused, glancing at him in confusion. Alex felt a flicker of doubt in his heart. "What do you mean?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. Ryan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We can use Gorak as bait. Draw them in, then ambush them," he suggested. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Alex felt a wave of anger wash over him. "You can't do that," he shouted. "Gorak is one of us." But Ryan pressed on, his voice steady. "Think about it. We can defeat them if we're smart. We need to eliminate the enemy before they attack us. Gorak can handle himself." Before Alex could respond, Gorak stepped forward. "I am strong," he said, his voice deep and calm. "I will do what is necessary to protect my friends." Alex felt torn. He didn't want Gorak to be in danger, but he also knew they had to act quickly. "Fine," Alex said reluctantly, looking into Gorak's eyes. "But we will not let anything happen to you." Gorak nodded, determination shining in his eyes. "Together," he said. With the plan set, Gorak moved into position as bait, while the crew prepared to ambush the enemy. Alex's heart raced as he watched Gorak stand alone, a giant against the approaching scouts. He hoped this plan would work. As the enemy scouts approached Gorak, Alex and the crew waited in silence, ready to spring into action. But just as they were about to launch their ambush, Alex noticed something strange. Ryan was moving to the side, away from the crew, whispering to one of the enemy scouts. "Ryan," Alex shouted, realizing too late what was happening. The crew turned to see Ryan betraying them, signaling the enemy. "No," Alex yelled, but it was too late. The enemy scouts had spotted them and charged forward, ready for a fight. Chaos erupted as the crew scrambled to defend themselves. Gorak quickly turned, his eyes wide with anger. "Ryan," he roared, his voice echoing through the air. But Ryan just laughed, a cruel smile on his face. "You thought you could trust an alien. You're all fools." The crew fought back against the enemy scouts, but now they were outnumbered. Alex felt a surge of rage at Ryan's betrayal. "We trusted you," he shouted, trying to focus on the fight. Gorak charged into battle, his massive fists swinging as he fought off the enemies. Alex joined him, using all his training to strike back against the attackers. But the odds were against them, and the crew struggled to hold their ground. Amid the chaos, Alex saw Gorak take a hard hit, stumbling back. "Gorak!" he yelled, rushing to his side. But Gorak quickly regained his balance and stood tall, ready to fight again. "I am okay," he grunted, determination in his eyes. With renewed strength, the crew fought fiercely against the enemy scouts, pushing back despite Ryan's betrayal. They knew they had to stick together to survive this challenge. The battle raged on, each moment filled with danger and adrenaline. Finally, with one last push, they managed to drive the enemy scouts back. Alex felt a rush of relief, but the fight was not over. They still had to deal with Ryan, who had turned against them. As the dust settled, Alex confronted Ryan. "You're a traitor," he shouted, anger boiling inside him. Ryan sneered, his eyes filled with malice. "And you're a fool for trusting an alien. You will regret this." Before Alex could respond, Gorak stepped forward. "You will not harm my friends," he declared, his voice booming. With their bond stronger than ever, Alex and Gorak prepared to face the traitor together. They would not let Ryan's betrayal tear them apart. United, they were ready to confront the darkness that threatened their newfound friendship. The Great Rescue. The tension in the camp was thick after Ryan's betrayal. The crew felt shaken, unsure of who to trust. But Alex and Gorak were determined to stay strong. They had fought hard to build their bond, and they would not let anyone tear it apart. As the sun rose the next day, they gathered to discuss their next steps. Commander Harris looked serious. "We must find Ryan and the enemy scouts before they regroup. They could be planning to attack again." "We need to act fast," she said, her voice steady. Alex nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. "Gorak and I will track them down. We can move quickly and quietly," he suggested. Gorak nodded in agreement. "I am ready," he said, his expression fierce. The crew rallied behind them, their spirits lifted by the duo's bravery. Before they set out, Alex took a moment to speak with Gorak. "I know we're risking a lot, but we have to do this. We can't let Ryan get away with his betrayal," he said, determination in his eyes. Gorak placed a large hand on Alex's shoulder. "We will find him and stop him. Together, we are strong." With their plans set, they moved through the forest, relying on Gorak's keen sense of direction and Alex's agility. They traveled quietly, listening for any signs of the enemy. The forest was alive with sounds, but the usual chatter of wildlife felt distant as they focused on their mission. After hours of searching, they finally spotted tracks leading away from the camp. Alex knelt down, examining the ground. "These footprints are fresh," he said, looking up at Gorak. "They must be nearby." Gorak nodded, his eyes scanning the area. "We should move carefully. They may be hiding." They pressed on, moving deeper into the forest. As they walked, Alex felt a sense of unease. "Do you think Ryan will try to attack us?" he asked, glancing at Gorak. He could have set a trap. Gorak's expression was serious. "He is cunning. We must be ready for anything." Just then, they heard a rustling noise nearby. Both of them froze, instinctively crouching low. Gorak gestured for silence, and they listened closely. The noise grew louder, and suddenly, a group of enemy scouts appeared, led by Ryan himself. They were heavily armed and looked ready for a fight. "Look who we have here," Ryan shouted, a smirk on his face. "The human and his giant friend. Did you think you could track us down? You're fools." Alex's heart raced. They had to think fast. Gorak stepped forward, his massive frame blocking Alex. "We will stop you, Ryan," he said, his voice deep and steady. The scouts laughed, their confidence growing. "You think you can take us on? We outnumber you," one of them taunted. But Alex and Gorak knew they had the element of surprise on their side. "We don't need to outnumber you," Alex shouted back. "We just need to be smarter." With that, he and Gorak charged forward, ready to face their enemies head-on. The battle erupted instantly. Gorak swung his fists, taking down scouts with powerful strikes. Alex moved quickly, using his agility to dodge and strike. They worked in perfect harmony, each covering the other's back as they fought. But the enemy was fierce, and they quickly realized that Ryan had called for reinforcements. "More enemies are coming," Gorak warned, noticing the shadows moving in the trees. "We need to move." Alex's mind raced. "Let's retreat to a better position," he suggested. "We can use the trees to our advantage." They quickly backtracked, leading the enemy scouts deeper into the forest. As they moved, Alex spotted a narrow ravine nearby. "This way," he shouted, leading Gorak toward it. They could use the terrain to slow down their pursuers. Once at the ravine, they quickly climbed down and hid behind a large rock. They could hear the enemy scouts searching for them above. "They're looking for us," Alex whispered, catching his breath. "We need to be patient." Gorak nodded, his eyes fixed on the enemy. "When the time is right, we will strike," he said, his voice low. They waited in silence, listening to the sounds of the enemy moving above. After what felt like an eternity, the scouts began to disperse. "They're splitting up," Alex noted, his heart racing. "This could be our chance." Gorak agreed, and together they climbed back up to the edge of the ravine. Just then, they spotted Ryan on his own, scanning the area. "Now," Alex whispered urgently. They charged at him, catching him completely off guard. "You won't escape this time," Alex yelled, lunging forward. Ryan stumbled back, shocked by their sudden appearance. "What? How did you?" But before he could finish, Gorak tackled him to the ground, pinning him down. "You will pay for your betrayal," Gorak growled, his grip strong. Alex stood over them, catching his breath. "This is for everyone you put in danger," he said, his voice firm. "You may have betrayed us, but we're not going to let you hurt anyone else." Ryan struggled, but Gorak held him down with ease. "You think you can win?" Ryan spat, his eyes filled with anger. "You'll never defeat us. We're stronger together." "Strength is not just in numbers," Gorak replied, his voice steady. "It is in loyalty and trust. You have none of that." Just then, Alex heard more footsteps approaching. "We need to leave," he said, panic rising in his chest. "We can't let them find us here." Gorak nodded, his eyes fixed on Ryan. "I will keep him here," he said. "You go back to the camp and warn the others." "No, we can't leave you," Alex protested, feeling torn. But Gorak's expression was serious. "You must warn the crew. We can't let them be caught off guard again. I will find a way to escape." With a heavy heart, Alex nodded. "Okay, but we'll come back for you." He turned and sprinted back toward the camp, his mind racing. He had to warn everyone about Ryan and the approaching enemy scouts. As he ran through the forest, Alex felt a mix of fear and determination. He knew they had to prepare for the fight of their lives. Gorak's strength and bravery would help them overcome any challenge. Finally, Alex burst into the camp, breathless and wide-eyed. "Everyone, we're in danger," he shouted, rallying the crew. "Ryan has betrayed us. The enemy is coming." The crew gathered around, their faces filled with concern. "We need to act fast," Commander Harris said, her voice steady. "Prepare for another attack. We will fight together." As the crew scrambled to gather weapons and reinforce their defenses, Alex felt a renewed sense of hope. They would face whatever came next, united as friends and allies. Gorak would not be alone. They would come for him, and together, they would triumph over the darkness. A new beginning. The camp was alive with a sense of urgency. After Alex's warning about Ryan's betrayal, everyone moved quickly, gathering weapons and preparing for the fight ahead. The air buzzed with tension as the crew faced an uncertain future, but their spirits remained high. They had each other, and that was enough to ignite a flame of hope. Alex stood by Commander Harris, watching the crew work together seamlessly. "We need to find Gorak," he said, his voice filled with worry. "He's out there, facing the enemy alone." Commander Harris nodded, her expression serious. "We will not leave him behind. We must hold the camp until he returns. Then we will plan our next move." As they prepared for battle, Alex felt a mix of anxiety and determination. He thought of Gorak, the giant alien who had become his friend and ally. Gorak had shown bravery in every challenge they faced together. Alex knew they would not abandon him, no matter what. The crew set up defenses around the camp, digging trenches and placing obstacles to slow down any attackers. They trained together, sharpening their skills and fortifying their bond. Despite the fear that lingered in the air, laughter echoed through the camp as they shared stories and encouragement. Hours passed, and the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. "It's time," Commander Harris said, looking out into the distance. "We must be ready for anything." The crew nodded, their faces steeled with determination. Suddenly, they heard a rustling sound from the forest. Tension filled the air as everyone turned to look. "Get ready," Commander Harris shouted, signaling for the crew to take their positions. Alex's heart raced as he clutched his weapon, scanning the trees for any sign of danger. Then, out of the shadows, Gorak emerged, carrying Ryan over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. The crew gasped, their eyes widening in disbelief. "Gorak!" Alex shouted, relief flooding over him. "You did it." Gorak dropped Ryan to the ground, glaring down at him. "I told you I would return," he said, his voice strong. The crew cheered, their spirits lifting at the sight of their friend. Gorak quickly explained how he had managed to capture Ryan and fend off the enemy scouts. Ryan groaned, rubbing his head as he looked up at Gorak. "You won't get away with this," he spat, struggling to get up. But Gorak stepped forward, towering over him. "You have already lost," he said firmly. "You betrayed your friends, and now you will face the consequences." Commander Harris stepped forward, her gaze fixed on Ryan. "You will no longer be part of this crew," she declared. "We do not tolerate betrayal. You will be held accountable for your actions." The crew nodded in agreement, their expressions filled with resolve. With Ryan secured, the crew began to discuss their next steps. "We need to gather more information about the enemy," Alex suggested. "They might have more plans in motion." Gorak nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I can help with that. I know how to track their movements." They quickly formulated a plan to send a small team, including Gorak and Alex, to scout the enemy's camp. Commander Harris would stay back with the rest of the crew to fortify their defenses. "We need to be ready for anything," she reminded them. "Our strength lies in our unity." As night fell, Gorak and Alex set out into the darkness, moving quietly through the trees. The forest was alive with sounds, but they stayed focused on their mission. Alex felt a sense of determination as they crept closer to the enemy camp. "We must be careful," Gorak whispered. "The enemy will be alert after the battle." Alex nodded, feeling the weight of their responsibility. "We need to find out how many there are and what their plans are." They moved stealthily, using the cover of night to their advantage. As they approached the enemy camp, they could see flickering campfires and hear the sounds of voices. Alex's heart raced as he crouched behind a tree, trying to get a better view. "Look," Gorak said, pointing to a group of enemy soldiers gathered around a fire. "They are planning their next attack." Alex listened closely, trying to catch snippets of their conversation. "We must strike at dawn," one soldier said. "They will not expect us after the last battle." Alex exchanged a worried glance with Gorak. "We have to warn the others," he said urgently. They needed to return to their camp and prepare for the upcoming assault. "Let's move." They made their way back through the forest, urgency pushing them forward. As they approached the camp, they could see the crew preparing for the night. "We need to tell them about the enemy's plans," Alex said, his voice filled with determination. Once they arrived, Commander Harris met them with a look of concern. "What did you find?" she asked, her eyes scanning their faces. "The enemy plans to attack at dawn," Alex said, his voice steady. "We need to prepare and set up defenses immediately." The crew quickly gathered around, listening intently. "We will not be caught off guard this time," Commander Harris said, her voice strong. "We will fight together, just as we always have." As the crew worked tirelessly through the night, Alex felt a deep sense of pride. They were united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Gorak's presence gave him strength, and he knew they could overcome any obstacle together. Dawn broke, casting a golden light over the camp. The crew stood ready, weapons in hand and determination in their hearts. "This is our chance to show them our strength," Commander Harris said, her voice ringing with confidence. As the enemy approached, Alex felt a surge of adrenaline. They had trained for this moment, and they were ready to defend their home and each other. Gorak stood tall beside him, a fierce guardian against the oncoming storm. "Together," Alex shouted, raising his weapon high. The crew echoed his cry, their voices strong and united. They would fight for their future, for their friendships, and for a new beginning. As the first enemy soldiers emerged from the trees, the crew sprang into action. With bravery and teamwork, they charged into battle, ready to face their greatest challenge yet. Together, they would forge a new path, leaving behind the darkness of betrayal and stepping into the light of hope.